How do you see the challenges from the point of your experience?
So thank you, Joe, for asking this question to an ERN representative, because indeed the ERN has the added values to be the neurological and pivotal center between not just scientific center, but also patients' organization and also researcher and also policymakers. So we are like able to have a visibility of the full pathway when it comes to the drug cycle of accessing to treatment and market authorization. And indeed, I want to bring 3 points on that I've seen by not just experience, but also studies that we have conducted in my ERN, so the ERN-EuroBloodNet. And the first one is that there is a huge discrepancy between market access to treatment and the effective patient's access to treatment. And this is because the 3 A's we have named today, so accessibility, availability, and affordability, are not necessarily, do not necessarily imply each other. And this is because we usually think about, when it comes to market authorization, we think about pricing and the treatment itself, but we should consider the full pathway. So not just from preclinical stage, so also identify the right center where to perform trials, but we should also consider the post-production, meaning the burdens that are on healthcare providers and on patients too. And so I would like to bring these 2 examples because they are key, as now we have the new pharmaceutical regulation proposal, also for understanding better what to name public health objectives to be achieved, because then we will reward with incentives the companies. And so we should consider these 2 cases, like CAR T-cell therapy, we have named it, as we said. For instance, if I think the one for rare B lymphomas, it needs devices, apheresis machine, stem cell freezing, formed staff, intense therapy unit, 15 years of monitoring of patients. So it's not just a matter of treatment, it's also what comes after the treatment. And also we have recently conducting a study with expert and patients organization, our EPACs. We are conducting a study about mapping availability and accessibility of PNH treatment. So this is a very rare disease, a bone marrow failure syndrome. And the treatment are complement inhibitors. They are very effective. They really change not just the quality of life, but also the life expectancy of patients. And they are prohibitively expensive. And so we conducted these studies, and we saw then reimbursement pathway affect more access to treatment than market authorization, because they rely on complex procedures that are undertaken by healthcare providers or even patients, because a treatment could be accessible on individual fund request. But even in those centers, when it was considered a standard of care, it was difficulty accessible by patients. And so I think we should consider this as a public objective. And also, of course, but I think Daniel will tackle this point, when it comes to unmet medical needs, to insert in this treatment pathway I was mentioning also the societal burdens on patients. So consider also chronic disease and not just morbidity and mortality. My second point, I will be quicker, it's about cross-border health directive and social security regulation and national plan disease, rare disease. Because we all have this universal objective of giving access to all patients for all rare disease, giving access to treatment, which is require like a distributive justice. But the system we have saw it's transactional. So it requires a study between supply and demand. It requires a study on value, risk, benefit, and so on. So how we do that? Of course, thinking about, as it said in the new proposal of the regulation, giving access to treatment in the 27 member states or where patients are is impossible for rare disease and even ultra-rare disease, because not all countries are prepared, not just of the pricing, but also to have the structure in the healthcare providers. So we should consider that. And finally, it has been named, so I'll be very quickly, we lack of information, so not just of information, also on the model of information. They are fragmented, they are not harmonized in Europe, and not just clinical information, but also post-treatment information. We do not have transparency. So I will focus on these 3 pending points. Yes, so I will advocate again for ERNs. So of course, ERNs could be a common ground for harmonizing data. So we have all brought the important issues of having harmonized data that could be accessible, interoperable, and reusable and searchable. So the fairness of the data. Of course, the European Commission with the rare disease platforms that ERNs are building and the European health data is already working for that. So we should strengthen this collaboration, because indeed, by collecting data via not just patient registry, but also PROMS registry, real-world data registries, epidemiological platform, we could really provide an invaluable insight to research and to policymakers for evaluate and estimate the P4P schemes, for evaluate the risk and benefit of developing a treatment. We can provide information about the right center where to develop a clinical trial. And as I said before, those platforms can collect also PROMS outcomes. They can collect also real-world data, and so those are valuable tools for developing repurposed drug, which is one of the key treatment for rare disease or ultra-rare disease. So ERN have the infrastructure for providing this data, not just for collecting, but also for sharing, because we have also a legal framework and ethical framework with a policy consent right by EPAGs. So I think this should be really strengthened. And then my second point, I just want to add that we could also imagine to track via registries, not just clinical data or PROMS data, quality of life data, but also cost of administration of treatment at healthcare provider level. So if we cannot ask for transparency of cost to, let's say at negotiation level, we can ask these to healthcare providers for understanding the burdens. And also allocate resources and optimize and maximize the resources. And finally, I was naming before the cross-border health directive, and here we saw create solidarity. And I'm not very comfortable with the concept of solidarity. Of course, this is something to be encouraged, and we should be solidary, but it's like to postpone the responsibility of giving access to treatment. So what could be done is, as I was saying before, we do have national rare disease plans. If I'm not mistaken, we have 26 out of 27 member states with the national rare disease plans. Some of them, so we should envisage to have all of them, provide the list of standard of care and the list of basket of benefits. So one of the ideas could be to have those lists, to match them, studying also the kind of healthcare system, at national level, because it could be public, private, mutual, regional, centralized, and create a cohort of member states matching needs, matching economical system, matching what they have put in place, and create not just an analysis of unmet medical need gap and what can be offered in terms of solidarities, but also groups of countries that can create a joint procurement when buying a treatment.